Jurassic World Alive is a mobile AR game released in 2018 about finding creatures in the world around you through your phone, catching them to add them to your collection, then using them in battles against other players, like Pokemon Go. The goal of the game was to choose the best 8 creatures that would make up your team or deck, then max them out to try and get as many cups as possible and reach the highest arena, kind of like Clash Royale. Many people wrote it off at the time as a cheap knockoff, but the game did something far better than the other two. The battle system in particular was far more intricate and interesting than any of the other games, with each creature having its own unique set of moves and stats as well as rarity. The rarities are common, rare, epic, legendary, unique, then apex, with each rarity having better stats and moves than the last. The battle complexity was great and the game was a success, gaining many players, but its success and battle complexity would be the downfall of the game in the end. It all started in 2019 with stat boosts. Stat boosts were a new feature allowing you to increase your creature's stats without leveling it up. Before then, whatever level you had the creature would determine what its stats were, and each creature had set stats. But now you could build upon those stats with stat boosts. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that these boosts were available to buy with money. This made the game very pay to win and caused people to wonder if Jurassic World Alive was ruined. The stat boosts made things messy for sure, and to make it worse, if you wanted to remove stat boosts from a creature after it got a nerf, or you don't want to use it anymore, there is a penalty, so you'd only get half of your boosts back.
Which is good, because if I want to take the 5 speed boost that is on this Hadrosaur Lux, I would lose 250 boosts by taking them all off. Normally, I'd get, with the reshuffle event, I'd get 500. That's a lot.
Ludia most likely designed it like this so that if you're trying to change your team, it would cost you a lot of boosts. Then you'd hopefully buy more. Ever since then, boosts have been a bit of a problem, but one all players are used to. Now, new problems are emerging. Jurassic World Alive recently released an update bringing many new features to the game, and PvP has become way more messed up than ever before. First of all, the PvP is simply becoming way too complicated. Take this hybrid, Scunametrodon, for example. It's very dominant in PvP, but not many people can use it effectively because of how overly complicated its moveset is. Every single one of its moves are what's called alert moves, which means the move changes depending on what the creature's health is. When the creature is above a certain health, it'll do one thing. Below a certain health, the move will do something else. All of Scunametrodon's moves change when it goes below half health.
Bruh. What is that? What is that? What is that?
Which confuses a lot of players and makes it very tricky to use effectively. So many effects and features have been added to the game since it first came out, and it's getting hard to keep up with them all. At first, we had simple things like stun, which makes your opponent skip a turn, distraction, which lowers their attack, speed decrease, which slows them down so you can go first, and some other simple effects like those, as well as resistances to those effects. But now, there's things like Affliction, which lowers your creature's resistances, Devour Heal, which gives you health depending on how much damage you do, kind of like Siphon. There's Armor Reduction and Buffing, and just all sorts of other things that people are struggling to keep up with. Another problem is the fast-paced meta. Throughout the years, there have been many creatures that have cycled through the meta. When the game first came out, though, the meta remained mostly the same for years, with a few new creatures being added or buffed to change things up until mid-2020, when Apexes were introduced. Since then, creatures will be added or buffed to be in the meta and will have already been maxed out and then benched by top players within a week. This has vastly increased the gap between casuals and people who grind the game 24/7, especially those who spend money on the game. Because unless you're playing constantly or dumping your whole bank account into the game, you can never keep up with the meta at this pace. Also, just wanted to add that right before this video came out, a new update actually came out in which 3 new Apex hybrids were released. All of them are really crazy good, and the top players, of course, unlocked them all straight away, maxed them, boosted them, put them on their team, and now they're dominating everybody with them, and everybody else is scrambling to get one, but by the time they do get him, they'll probably be useless anyway, so just, case in point, the game is completely pay to win. The PvP has been messy ever since they added stat boosts years ago. At least we had tournaments. in which all creatures were set to the same level with no stat boosts, and those were completely fair. But then advantage tournaments were added, in which, unlike the skill tournaments, they were not all set to level 26, and stat boosts were not excluded. Whatever level you had your creature normally and whatever boosts were on it was what you had to use in the tournament. This made advantage tournaments just as bad, if not worse than PvP, because in tournaments where you can only use the lower class rarities like common, rare, and epic, the more casual players will only use those creatures to unlock their hybrids. They certainly won't have them boosted. The top players who have resources to spare can just max those creatures out and dominate uncontested. Up until now, we've always had skill tournaments where everything's level 26 with no boosts, but with the addition of a new rarity, Omega, even those have been messed up. What sets Omegas apart from other rarities is that instead of their stats increasing when they level up, Omegas get what's called training points, which you use to increase the Omega stats, so your Omega stats should correlate to the level you have it. But you can build those stats however you want, unlike normal creatures that have set stats that you just build upon with boosts. Omegas mess up skill tournaments because unlike the stat boosts that aren't accounted for in tournaments, the training points are. So, even though they're all set to level 26 in a tournament, if one player has that Omega level 1 normally and one player has it level 30, the player that has the level 30 Omega will have better stats in the tournament because they have all the training points. Not to mention that a higher level you get your Omega, the more moves you unlock for it, so its moveset should also correlate to its level. But if you only have your Omega level 1 and you only have the base 2 moves unlocked and then use it in a skill tournament, even though it's set to level 26, you'll still only have those base 2 moves. And people who actually have the Omega high enough level and have unlocked all its moves will be able to use them all in tournaments, so they'll have tons of advantages that you don't. And since all tournaments allow Omegas, all common, rare, and epic tournaments are completely pointless because none of those creatures stand a chance against Omegas. Even most legendaries are outclassed. Another problem with tournaments in the game in general is that rewards are scarce and all the top prizes go to the top players with resources to spare anyway. Upgrading your team takes a lot of resources. It takes 2.5 million coins to max a unique out, and coin tournaments, which only happen once a month, only give 1 million to first place. This means if you wanted to max your whole team out and they were all uniques, that's about 20 million coins, meaning if you got first place in every single coin tournament, which would take hours upon hours of grinding, it would literally take you 2 years to get enough coins to max out the whole team. Now, coin tournaments aren't the only way to get coins and certainly not the most efficient way, but my point is the prizes should be better. The prizes for stat boosts are even worse, only giving you about 15 boosts, maybe less, for getting first place, and it takes 240 to max a whole team out. I've been playing the game for over 2 years, almost every single day, taking any chance I get to get boosts without spending money. And I don't even have enough to max out a whole team for regular PvP. I definitely don't have enough to spare for tournament teams, and of course there's the boost removal penalty, which makes everything way worse. All the top players have the advantage in tournaments and win easily, so they get the best prizes. Meanwhile, the lower players barely get anything, making it even harder to progress, while all the top players continue to get all the resources that they don't need. You might be wondering why I play this since I've made it sound so terrible. Personally, I enjoy the challenge of being at a constant disadvantage, and I also know the game. I know it has a lot of problems, but I also know it has a lot of potential. The biggest problem isn't that the Omegas are ruining tournaments, or stat boosts, or the incredibly fast meta that no one can keep up with. It's that Ludia would rather milk the game for all it's worth than get rid of it than actually make a good game.